Smithfield Municipal Building Review Task Force meeting, May 30th, 2024. We're going to start the meeting by having the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, roll call. Mr. Beauregard. Paulette.
Here.
Mr. Ogier.
Here.
Claire O'Hara. And Kim Alves here. Okay. Open forum for agenda items only pursuant to 42-46-6D, maximum 3 minutes per person. Did anyone want to speak? Yeah, go ahead, Gary.
Good evening. Gary Zofsky, 88 North Main Street. I attended your last meeting, and I have comments for what they're worth. I think an important mantra for any public project starts with something on the line of get the budget right and you'll get the project right. In North Smithfield, I think our best example of late has been the middle school. A good budget, a good plan, a good carry-through, a problem-free result. Worst example, almost every other project over the last 30 years, where professionals have presented inadequate budgets, and we've tried to believe in them. If we've learned anything over the last 8 years, we know real police stations are expensive. Based on what another Northern Rhode Island town has now concluded, we should also know 18 million was probably right on target. Ignoring that will hurt North Smithfield in the long run. At your last meeting, you speculated about doing piecemeal renovations annually. As I sat there listening, I just couldn't imagine how that would possibly fit into an annual budget where we have a 4% cap that we're constantly looking at. I also cannot fathom what that would mean in the way of constant interruption to police operations. Just think about that. At your last meeting, some of you were taking comfort in the chief's construction experience. I appointed Chief Lafferty, and I have great confidence in him. But let's not kid ourselves. He's not an architect. And a real, properly experienced architect is needed. There was also thought expressed at the last meeting that the language of the last bond question was a factor in the vote. I didn't walk the entire town, but I walked most of this village prior to that vote and talked to a lot of people. Some very intelligent people that had taken a no position because they didn't want a council to decide for them, whether there was renovation or new. There's no doubt in my mind that the language itself brought many negative votes. This issue requires a good plan, a good budget, together with leadership. Leadership's been defined as causing people to do what they would not do on their own. People have elected us to take time to do the work, to understand needs, gather information, and offer direction. Let's stop kidding ourselves. Our police personnel in this town need a real police station, not some cobbled over relic designed by people who lack the required experience. As I assume you'll be contemplating engagement of the architect who prepared the 2014 documents, I have to wonder how all public bid requirements will be honored if that is to happen. Finally, in your agenda tonight, you have a line to consider hiring a clerk of the works. And I wonder what the late Councilman Halloran would think about that, based on his attitude and his demands when we were paying a clerk of the works for this project before we had a project. We were paying somebody to stand around and do whatever was available to do at, I don't know, $2,500 a week. And we got nothing for it, nothing. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak?
when it was being debated, Mike Clifford, 489 Black Plain Road, when it was being debated last time, I heard many of you say, well, we need to, you know, if we're going to compare or give people an option, we need to know what the cost is. We need to know what the cost is, the updated cost. And we never got that. You're in a position right now where you could get an updated cost. I think I heard option B last meeting was going to like $42,000 or something like in that figure, $40,000 to come up with modified plans with the chief, working with the chief, with the architect, and a cost estimate, an actual cost estimate for that with the Sally Port. And I think, you know, we've been talking about it and used it as an excuse along the way many times that we didn't have an accurate cost estimate. I think the people in this town would like to know what that cost is, and I hope you pursue option B. Thank you. Or whatever one it was.
You're referring to the architect, update the building, assess, oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
last time it was, you had a description for two choices. One was just, you know,
The
higher
architect
cost
discovery,
estimate.
architect discovery,
Mhm.
is that the one you're
Is
referring
that the one,
to?
it was 40-something thousand?
Yeah, 35 to
that was-
50?
Yeah, that's.
Okay.
A reasonable margin.
Anyone else like to speak during this time? You're all set? Okay. All right, that's going to close open forum. On to the next item. Discussion, vote, or other action on list of repairs at police station. 1, review the punch list completion by Dubon Masonry, and review of additional brickwork on the building. So the first one,
So I think we may have gotten, I don't know if you got an email from Dubon and from Tecton saying that they're coming to the end of their contract and not, they won't be overseeing anything
Right.
anymore, right? So I think in June sometime they're going to have a final meeting. So at this point, I think what we're looking at, to the best of my knowledge, everything has either been addressed or is in the process of being addressed, including the exterior of the building. I know the Dubon Masonry is now in the final phases of having done all the brickwork, and they are going to seal the building,
and
right?
power wash.
And
right?
power
Yeah.
wash, and power wash first, and then seal, yes. So then that'll be the end of that and their responsibility for the external part of the building. I think the landscaping is being addressed with DPW, and they are going to work together to do some loom and seed of the grass that was disturbed. The things that we thought went wrong weren't, you know, affected. So I think at this point, we can safely say, with the exception of the painting of the ramp, which I was told by Mr. Pendergast that DPW will be going out there next week to complete that, or to begin anyway. I don't know if they'll complete, weather dependent. So then that will be the exterior completion.
So I'm just going back onto the Tecton, the walkthrough that was conducted by Sean on March 22nd. It's basically their punch list. And number 2, because I know they've been going back and forth about the whole landscaping, and number 2 does say, general cleanup of front yard, coordinate stockpile location for existing granite signage and medallions with owner, reset existing monument, coordinate with owner, fence removal by owner, site area should be returned to its previous condition, contracted to provide loom and seed, and replant shrubs as required. So I think, and I know I've sent off an email to Dubon, and I don't think I've received any response back on here, but
Okay.
right on his checklist, he's saying that they are responsible, because I could have sworn they said there was money in contingency for the landscaping.
Okay, I'll follow up on that with DPW so that we're not taking on an expense that we don't need.
You want to take that up?
I'll do that.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect, thank you. Yeah, I mean, they said they were going to bring it back to that,
Okay.
to the way it was.
Good.
And, you know, obviously, we can probably get some smaller shrubs in the front so it doesn't take away from what they've done, you know. But, yeah, I don't think they've responded at all about the landscaping piece of it. But I think Dubon, some of the last communication is Dubon actually said they would also step in and do it. So we just need to make sure that
All right,
someone's going to take care.
Let's coordinate
Yeah,
that. Okay. All
thank
right.
you.
Thank you.
So we go on to the next one, review of additional brickwork on building.
Yeah, as far as I know, as I mentioned, that they are going to power wash the entire building, they're having finished the actual brickwork, and they will be sealing the brick. So,
It does look really nice.
yeah, it does look good
Yeah.
now.
Okay. Discussion, vote, or other action on renovation plan, addition of Sallyport, 2024 estimating cost with escalation.
Okay, what I was tasked with contacting Eric Army and getting a name of someone to do a cost estimate, and I was given it up to $8,000 amount not to exceed. I did reach out to someone that that he provided me through the Keogh group, and there was discussion back and forth about exactly what we were looking for and what kind of detailed estimate they were, to provide. The original amount that he had provided me was $12,000, which exceeded the amount that I was authorized to complete. So then upon, talking to him a little bit more, he did an escalation of the construction costs, and his name is Casey Lake from the Keogh group.
Okay.
And he was recommended by Eric Army, and in 2024, the estimated construction cost is $4,800,112. Okay. It's a 4.3% escalation according to inflation percentage. So that does not include, so that's 4.8. It does not include the $1 million that we've spent. So that's down to 3.8. Okay. And it does not include the Sallyport, which is a couple of $100,000. So we're still looking at around, $4 million. Of the $4 million that we have, let's say that's a very rough idea, but that is in 2024 dollars, okay? We have $1 million in a grant. We have a $128,000 or $129,000 additional grant for lighting and or HVAC. There's also been a $500,000 grant we were told about that went to Representative Gabe Ammo's office. So we'd be close to $2 million, give or take, okay? So we could actually look at borrowing from our fund, our unrestricted fund, a couple of $1 million, and not have to spend a dime of taxpayer dollars on this project. So that would give the chief the Sallyport additionally, because that is something that he has felt very strongly about. Others have said, it would help in terms of the accreditation and things that we are required to do. So I would recommend that we have this from Signal Works, which is the, the 3 options that we were provided before. Now, we haven't spent any money on an estimate because we haven't gotten a real estimate, but we got an escalation cost, which gives us a better idea of where we are right now, because we didn't know if it was, how much the escalation cost would have increased the overall construction. So we could do a couple of things. One thing I think we should do is engage Mr. Army in that option 2, which is the architect discovery, and he would be meeting with the chief, looking at the plans that we have in place now, looking at how they might need to be modified, given that we've, things might have changed over the last 10 years. Looking at, that we're up to par on all the codes. And it would be an all-in-one capital expenditure. He'd do a third-party cost estimate. And after that phase is completed, the budget and timeline could be set. I also did talk to him over the last couple of days, told him we were going to have a meeting today. And he said another option, would be that we could give him a dollar amount. Like if we said to him, okay, we don't want you to exceed more than $2 million, in addition to what we have for the the grants. He could do something with us to give us an idea of that as well. So I think what we have to do tonight, and hearing Mr. Izofsky speak and others, I think it reflects the tone of the town, that they want to see some actionable things taking place. I think we should, as it was stated to us in option 2, between $35,000 and $50,000 to have a facility needs assessment, the conceptual plans, and a complete cost estimate. So that's what I would recommend that we do with Mr. Army, get this going. And the other thing that I think we need to do, if we're looking at trying to find the money for, the gap that we have that is not associated with a grant, is get the financial, Mr. Masseroni, Steve Masseroni, our financial advisor, to come to a meeting and tell him that we're interested in taking $2.5 million or whatever the total amount is, but, give him a figure or a ballpark and ask him about the implication of that reduction in our fund on our bond rating. How will that affect it? Will it affect it? What can we do to minimize it? Because at this point, we were told we could take a couple of $1 million by him at a previous meeting with Tecton. I mean, this has all been going on for so long, without having an effect on our bond rating. But I want to hear it again.
Yeah.
I would want to hear it again. I'd want to know exactly, what the implications, if any, are. If there are none, that would be great. And I think that would be, my motion would be to go with option 2, get that facility needs assessment, the conceptual plans done, the cost estimate, make sure everything is up to code, and we could proceed, from that point with our next renovation plan.
So 4.8 would be the new renovation cost, is that what you're saying?
Well, he's estimated, well, again, this is a very,
Yeah, I know.
this
It's
is a
just-
construction cost just based on what the, inflation rate has been. So $4,800,112. $4,800,112 is what the construction cost would be. It's not a detailed and it's not a complete estimate. It's just, giving us an idea with escalation. Of that 4.8, we've already spent 1 million.
So that's just construction, so no FF&E, none
Right.
of that stuff, okay.
Correct. And again, there were things that we had in those original plans that we may not need now, the EMA, for instance.
Right.
Right? There could be things since the last 10 years that the chief has said, well, I don't think, I think we can do without that. I know one thing he was absolute about is, if we can, bring the municipal court back so that it's under their jurisdiction, which, makes perfect sense. So there may be things that are very, it may be less involved than it was initially. And, then we could utilize those grants. I want to move on this because I'm concerned also about those grants.
Right.
I don't know the deadline, and they could be years from now, but, years go by really quick. And I don't want to lose, $1.5 million worth of grants because we were dragging our feet. So that's what I would recommend. And that would be my motion.
So the 500,000, that just was submitted, right? We haven't received anything on that,
Right,
right? Okay.
right. That would be additional. But I also think it's important that we talk to our financial advisor to find out, how we're
Yeah.
going to impact, if at all, our bond rating. And if there's very little or no impact to the bond rating, and he can verify that, and everybody feels comfortable, I think then, we might want to, as opposed to going out to bond for a small amount like that, it's very costly, might be the best way to do it.
Okay. So are you saying that you've made a motion to,
Yep.
to,
To engage Mr., well, it would be Signal Works and their people, for the architect discovery, which is a facility needs assessment and stakeholder discovery. The cost at the time, a couple of weeks ago, when he gave this to us, was a range of between 35 and 50,000. I don't think it will go that high, but that was the range.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second for discussion.
Go ahead.
Bless you.
So I know the president said that there's no FF&E, or I'm assuming no technology added to that. Is there any site work in that cost estimate as well, or none of that? None of that's included, right? It's just bare bones. This is to renovate the building itself.
Right, so, I mean, and the other thing that he mentioned here is that he could do it, which most people don't think is a good idea, but multi-year. You know, like if all we did this year was bring the municipal court, we could do that if we wanted to do something next year. But I really think we have to put it in order, and we have to execute it, because, you know, there are some of us who are not running. The composition of the council could change. And then again, you're running into a possibility that there may be, you know, deviations from what it is that we want to see accomplished, at least for now, and have a building that we're proud of for a reasonable period of time.
The only thing else I'll say is I'm looking at the opinion of probable costs, project costs from July of 2021 with Tecton. And I know that, you know, those numbers, you know, were debated at length. So I'm not going to get into the whole cost, but I know the existing facility renovation of just the actual renovation of the 15,000 square feet was 4.3 million. So I think I don't disagree with you, Paula, in that we need to know more if we were to go down this route. Because I don't think it's going to be 4.8 million. I think there's going to be other things like the bonds and the overhead and the other contingencies. Because I know when Mr. Army spoke last year, he factored 30.
Right.
He factored other contingencies into his thing.
Absolutely, yep.
So
Yep.
I think it's a start.
Right. Well, I think that's what we're trying to do, and we got it for, we didn't get any, there was no fee for this escalation, you know. And it just gives us a jumping off point, I think, because, you know, there's been so many numbers tossed around about what the cost could possibly be in $2024, and I think at least we have an idea. But I think I think you're absolutely right, Mr. Ogier, that, you know, it's not comprehensive, and we know that. So I think having the option 2 would bring us closer to that, and, you know, then we would be able to determine what our budgeting options are and how to pay for this.
And then, as you mentioned too, Mr. Army said that we can also, if he comes back and it's a little bit higher than we thought, we could always reel him back and say, we just want to go to a certain dollar amount, so that way we can take some other things into consideration.
Well, that is the other thing he said to me the last couple of days when I've had communication with him. He said, if you came to me and said you wanted me not to exceed X, I would work with the chief, you know, to stay within that dollar amount, so that we would all be on the same page. That's another option too. Instead of going in and looking at it and saying, okay, is this pie in the sky again? If we want to make sure that we have more of a control over it, we could actually give him a dollar amount, and then he'd work backwards on that.
Yeah, because I'm sure if we review these plans and we look at more of needs than wants, and kind of scale it back that way, or even if we just say, okay, yeah, just redo the whole, quote the whole project the way it was, and then we can always go back and start taking things out, if so we could save money if we wanted to for, communications and, the FF&E part of it, you know.
And we could get grants for those if we knew that we needed those, so for IT, for example, or IT grants, and I know that one of the big costs is going to be a new dispatch, right? So and there are grants available for those types of things, so. I mean, it will bring us closer.
Yeah.
It's not going to be
just look
finished.
at the grants that have become available in the last 6 to 8 months for the police station, so obviously they are coming out. It's just, we just need to make sure that we're keeping an eye on them.
Right. And now that we have grant writers, that, you know, we can let them know these are the specific areas that we want
Right.
them to focus on. We might be able to further reduce this cost, who knows?
Mhm.
So since we're still in the discussion, if moving forward with Mr. Ami, there's no RFQ, RFP process that we need to follow? I know we have his plans and we own the plans, but, you know, I know that certain services are excluded from that, and I believe
Yeah.
architectural might, I'm not sure, but I just want to
Well-
make sure that there's no,
Yeah, because I don't think any other architect can use his plan, so it has
No.
to be him because it's
but I'm just asking
proprietary.
the question, do we have to,
Yeah, yeah.
just want to make sure we're satisfying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I reached out to the solicitor before we went, before we started talking about this, when you guys had asked me to reach out to him, and he said that, you know, we could have someone look at his plans, but we obviously can't do anything with them, so in order for us to act with these plans, we would need to be with Mr. Ami. Like, we could have someone review them, but they wouldn't be able to make any changes or anything like that, you know,
Okay.
when we were talking about having just someone else look at them. No one, yeah, obviously, no one else could stamp his plans.
Right, yeah,
or-
no, that I
or do any
understand,
changes to his
Mm.
plan, so.
Right.
I think that probably he might be onto something, and maybe you should make it subject to, you know, if you're gonna go
Well,
forward with
it
the
look-
motion, subject to legal opinion from the solicitor that we're free to do this.
Or just wait a week and,
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
Good idea. We'll cover it, that way we'll be on the safe side.
yeah.
Mhm. All right, so then my motion would be amended to include the hiring of Mr. Army for option 2 for the facility needs assessment and stakeholder discovery with the approval of the solicitor for bidding purposes, right?
so, and so I just want to, I'll second for discussion again. I just want to make sure, because I'm looking at the sheet again. And, you know, he doesn't get into renovation redesign until option 3, right? So option 2 is just kind of like the discovery, like, let's make sure the needs are still there, everything is good. Does option 2 bind us to option 3, since we're talking about moving forward with his plans? Just in the event, say something, we don't like the way that option 2 turned out, right? Now you've committed, I'm just gonna use the high end, the 50,000, right, as a maximum number. Does that doesn't necessarily mean we're moving forward necessarily to option 3, correct?
No, they're separate, right? Because on option 3, it says, an architect would modify the 2014 renovation plan to meet current needs. This would begin with the option 2 facility assessment. So that, you know, that would, if we chose the third option, the needs assessment would be included in that. But it doesn't mean that we have to go to the next option with him. These are just things that he was looking at. The first one was the cost estimation, the second is the architect discovery, and the third one is the actual renovation design. There will be, most likely, after that option 2 is done, further expenses related to schematics and, you know, overall complete design, if we had to, but it doesn't, they're separate, they're all separate, 1, 2, and 3,
So will option 2 get us closer to what a truer number would look like?
correct.
Did he give us a time frame on this one?
He did not know, I mean, I can ask him, I don't think it's gonna be that, I mean, do you have an idea, like ASAP? Is that what you want?
I mean, yeah, I'm just thinking like get and go as soon as possible, but I was just wondering how long this
No,
process
he
takes.
didn't
That's
say.
all.
No, he didn't say.
Any other questions?
No, I mean, just, you know, I tend to, I've said it before, you know, I tend to fall on the side that I just looked at what other communities have used, and they do usually have a firm. You know, I know Attleboro's been brought up a lot, Cumberland, Lincoln, they all used firms that had public safety experience, so that is my only concern. You know, I know it's been a decade, so I think something needs to happen over there. I've said that as well, and I think as, you know, as long as we're not bound to anything in terms of like, you know, going, you know, it's good to have a comparative. It's hard to just say the 4.8 when the other one was I
Oh,
think we
yeah.
need to know the truer cost.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, and like I say, I mean, that was a free escalation just, by inflation percentages. That was, it was a quick, as they say, back of the envelope type of thing, right?
And what was the original?
The original 2014 was 2.8, 2015, 2.9, 2016, 3,063,000, 2017, 3,185,000, 2018, 3,357, 2019, 3,515, 2020, 3,599, 2021, 3,895, 2022, 4,366, last year, 4,602, and 2024, 4,800. I can get copies of that for you, too.
And we have funds, we still have funds in the bond right now, right?
Yeah, we should,
Yeah.
because we're close to the amount, but I think we have, I'd have to ask Anthony again, but the last time it was several hundred thousand.
Would it be
dollars.
beneficial to, and I agree with moving forward, but would it be beneficial to maybe wait on like a week and then have Mr. Army come in and we can ask him any other questions if we have, or he can give, because, there's going to be, even if we go forward and get this done, like, what does the full timeline, I think the president brings up a good question, like, the timeliness of all this, because you're still a ways away from getting bid sheets. I mean, it's not going to happen probably within 3 or 4 months. I'd be shocked, just looking at some of the other projects. So it would be good to know the timeline of it all, because if it's going to take him 4 or 5 months to do it could take him like a month. But if it takes him a few months over the summer and whatnot, and it's the fall, and then, then the renovation redesign, what does that scope look like? It may not be as compressed as we're thinking, and that's one of my other
I
concerns.
know, but we've waited, the problem is we've just kicked the can down the road
I
so
agree,
many
it's been
times.
a
that
long time,
Now we're like.
too long.
Yeah, we are. It's, it's close to the end of the year, and, I mean, I can ask him to just expedite it, for sure,
Yeah.
Aside from that, I have no other questions. I mean, I'll vote yes tonight, just because the chief said that there seemed to be no issues with the plans the last time, and the cost
Right.
seemed to be in line. So I think in order to fully compare what Tecton had provided, or a firm like Tecton, to what an updated
Right.
a needs assessment would look like for the comparative purpose, I think that makes sense to
Okay.
have a side-by-side comparison.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second, so I guess we're ready to do roll call?
The motion was for the confirmation with the
Right,
solicitor and the
right.
finance
Right, so
director,
we're
right?
gonna move forward pending the approval
Right.
from the solicitor, which we can
Yep,
find
perfect.
out from tomorrow, but I know he's already said it was okay, but we'll, yes.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
Okay, so roll call on that is Paulette,
Yes,
Ms. Dozier,
Yes.
and I'm voting yes. Okay, so we'll move forward pending approval from the solicitor, and I'll reach out to him tomorrow. And then I'll send an email to the clerk, and she can send it out to everyone with the solicitor's,
response?
Yeah.
Okay,
okay,
good. Thank you.
thank you. The next one is discussion, vote, or other action on submitting RFP to hire clerk of the works.
So, I think right now, it might be premature. I think we've been worrying about, I know I have, how much time this is taking and how much, I'm not a professional in the construction business. But I think if we can get this option 2 under our belt and have a better idea of where we're going, then at that point, we can see what needs to be done. And if indeed we need to hire someone to do that. So I think it might be a bit premature. That would be my thought. I don't know how you feel.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a little early.
Yeah, and I think it's something that we definitely need to consider going down the road, or even like a project manager that we can kind of defer to.
Right.
Or
maybe
facilities
work-
manager.
Our facilities manager, ooh.
That can kind of work per hour
Got that
rather than
right in
just
there.
have them on, an open payroll.
I agree.
But yeah, I think
Oh,
that would be
right.
probably be the next,
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think you're right, we have to be careful that we don't want to expend funds that are not going to be utilized effectively.
Okay. So that one we're gonna hold off on, right?
Mhm.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, the next one is, next meeting.
Probably should meet sooner rather than later, right?
Yes,
At least
please.
if it's just to get an update on
Right,
the timeline of all
Yep.
this.
okay, so we're on the 30th. A Thursday is good for most people, yes?
Yeah, Thursdays work. I mean, I'm pretty flexible. If it's at 7, it's pretty flexible.
And there's no one in the chambers, so that probably would be okay, right?
Unless you're in a planning board meeting.
Oh,
But I don't. Second Thursday,
Second.
so outside of that, you're good.
oh, boy. Okay, so
So that would be the 13th. So,
Thir- we'd have to, do you want to wait till the 20th? That seems kind of long, no? Want to try a
It doesn't have
different?
to be a Thursday. It could be.
I mean, we could probably do the 6th and then just, we can see if, Mr. Army can just give us some, like,
Okay,
the timeline on it
Okay.
and stuff, because that's really all we're looking for, right?
Yeah, I
right,
think
there
just
won't,
the
there won't be
timeline
much
and-
else to discuss, right? Okay,
Yeah.
so June 6th at 7 PM,
Yeah.
and then we want the timeline and anything else. So we'll have the information also from the solicitor by then and from the finance director to make sure that there's enough in the, okay. Okay, June 6th, which is a Thursday, 7 PM.
All right. Anything else?
Not for
So,
me.
motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All in
Second?
favor? Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye.